Hello everyone, my name is Victoria Butt. So I'm the CEO and founder of Evolved Sales Training. So this is the first of 3 lunch and learns. This is on sales conversions, and the next one is on networking and how to be memorable. So I'm not sure about you, but COVID has made us all a little bit kind of worried about, well, not worried, but networking has stalled. We all know this because we physically haven't been able to, unless we've been amazing and we've been online. But I haven't been. I've been very much let my networking slide a bit. So being memorable networking is as important as anything else. So that's going to be the second lunch and learn. That's on the 5th of August. And if you want more details on that, just ask Rachel. So Rachel Lee here is my left-hand lady, and she's incredible. Right-hand lady. That makes more sense. So thanks, Rachel. And if you need anything in the lunch and learn, just message her directly. So we have 2 I guess, soft rules, if you like, of today. The first one is please ask questions. As we all know, sales and the account management process is not linear, and it's certainly not easy. I've been in this business for 20 years. I've built 3 businesses, one of which is multi-million-dollar revenue business, and I am still learning. I think that it does come easier to some, and I get that. But really, it is something that keeps changing on us as well. So please ask loads of questions, just pop them in the chat. And the second one is that there is a survey, which is a feedback survey that I'd really love you to do. I'm constantly looking at how I can improve this type of thing, and I can't stand putting out shit content. So if you think it needs improving, or you want to suggest something you would like to hear more about, then please fill that survey out. All right, so I'm going to just crack straight on because I really want to leave more time for questions and interaction, because having me talk for an hour sounds rubbish. So I really want to make sure that we can all learn from each other. All right, so what we're going to learn today, or let's just say what we're going to talk about today, is 5 hacks to increase sales conversions. So the first one is reducing the time to sign. The second is supercharging the guarantee, and we're going to go on and talk about expectations and boundaries. The fourth one is probably my favorite, is ditching the low value clients. And I know that there will be a lot of you sitting there thinking, well, I can't ditch them. Corporate has told me I can't, or that, I need them to pay my bills. We'll see. We will see. And the final one is options with. So I promise you this will not be boring, and I promise you also that this will be packed full of content on the how. When you do these kind of lunch and learns and things like this, a lot of people suggest that you shouldn't give too much content away, because then people don't kind of need to engage with you after. I think that's rubbish. I think absolutely I'm here to prove myself to you. So I really hope I do that. So I'm going to just stop sharing because I'm not overly a PowerPoint person. I don't think you need to sort of necessarily look at that. You can look at each other. So the first hack is very much about reduce the time to sign. All right, so what basically this is reducing the time of your sales cycle. So if you can think about when your sales cycle starts, which is really your meaningful conversation. So your first meaningful conversation, and then all the way through to the deal. And everyone's different on the deal. So the deal for you could be an invoice out and paid, or it could be heads of agreement signed, or it could be anything. So I guess I need you to sort of use your discretion here. So what I'd really love to do is get a read of the room in terms of the current sales cycles, because we've got heaps of people online, and I'm not really sure. The industries are all very different. My business, the sales cycle, the 2 businesses that I can really sort of share today is between 8 and 12 weeks. And I know that whatever happens, if it goes over 12 weeks, it probably won't happen in my business. And this business, which is my 3rd baby, which is probably my favorite at the moment, is who knows? It's too new to know what the sales cycle is. So could you just put in the chat your sales cycle, just 5 weeks, 15 minutes, if only, 12 months, anything. If you can just give me a bit of a read of the room, that would be great. 2 to 3 months, 6 to 8 weeks. Anyone else? All those people with their cameras off, multitasking. Okay, cool. All right, 3 months, 12 weeks to 5 months, 2 to 4 months, 1 week. 1 week, nice. All right, great. So what we're going to do is a bit of a, I'm going to call it an exercise, which sounds rubbishly boring, but it won't be, I promise. So reducing the time to sign. So the first thing is you all know your sales cycle, right? And there is, you can only really control, we all think we can't control our sales cycle as much as we want to, right? So for most of us, we can probably control 10 to 20% of the actual sales cycle, and then the rest is kind of in the client's hands, right? You know, they're the ones that need to get sign off from procurement or government or God knows what, you know, they're the ones that have a lot of the control, and that in itself is where the problem is. So what I want you to do is just look at this slide here and just talk about the meaningful conversations through to the deal done. And I want you to pinpoint the area in which you have the most problems with your deal doing. You know, so is it at that point where you can't, the converting from the proposal, sending the proposal through to signing is very tricky, or that it takes too long? Or is it from meetings through to actually a sort of a heads of agreement? Everyone is in such a different industry, so I don't really want to sort of assume. All right, so when you look at your sales cycle, if you tackle your sales cycle from the whole gamut of meaningful conversation all the way through to the deal done, it's actually too overwhelming, because you just relied on too many things you can't control. So I just want you to tackle the bit that is the most pain in the bum, the bit that really gets you. So it might be a sort of a small portion of that. I'm working with a company at the moment, and I just want to give you an example. What I'm working with them on is that their proposal, when they send a proposal through to having that proposal signed, is about 12 weeks, but their whole sales cycle is 18 weeks. So a massive portion of time and money is actually spent on this tiny part of the process. So what we've done, so they're $100 million business, and they've brought me in. It's run by a friend, and they just wanted me to help the sales team. So it's a formal engagement in so much as it's sort of commercially, I'm being paid to do it, but it's also a really great example to share with you. So what we've done is we've actually we've decreased their sales cycle by 17%. And what's been really good, because I've been working with them for about 6 months, is that actually has increased their EBITDA, or their EBIT, sorry, by 25%. So they've actually got a significant revenue or a significant profit bounce, because we've actually compressed their sales cycle. So how did we do this? So the first thing we did is we said, okay, we're just gonna look at this tiny part of the sales cycle. We're not going to touch anything else, because we don't want to be distracted by noise. We just want to touch this. So what happens? We send a proposal, and then what do we do? And so I basically re-engineered this process for them. So the first thing we did is that they weren't allowed to leave that meeting. They weren't allowed to actually send a proposal without having a meeting booked in to present the proposal. Really simple, really small thing. We changed the culture entirely. That was the first thing we did. So when they went to a meeting and the client said to them, yeah, send me a proposal, you know, blah, 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 that was actually an objection. That was not a buy-in sign. However, a lot of the team were taking it as a buy-in sign, feeling really good about themselves, doing a yeehaw and running off, doing a proposal. And then, of course, the proposal, you know, sat in the inbox. So that was the first thing we did. The second thing we did is that we wouldn't let them present the proposal. We wouldn't let them send the proposal without presenting it in person. So when I was in the UK, I was in a role where I remember doing quite a big mandate at the time. It was £200,000, which was massive at the time. I was like 24 years old. It was massive. And one of my mentors was in the business. He said, how's your big deal going? And I was like, yeah, it's going fine. It's going fine. But the proposal's not been signed, you know. And they said, well, what are you doing about it? And I said, well, I'm leaving it to the gods. You know, I've done everything I can. And I remember my mentor, I think it's my manager, he looked at me and was like, why would you leave anything to the gods? This is a big deal for you. This is huge. And I said, well, they're in Canary Wharf and I was in the city. It was an hour and a half round trip. I protect my time, very much protect my time, still do. And he said, you know, if you go there with a proposal, you'll get that signed in person. And of course I did. For an hour and a half, £200,000 deal was done. Look, I'm not saying it wouldn't have been done, because I think it was a really good process and I was very confident, but it certainly sealed the deal, if you like. The third one is we put an expiry date on their proposal. So we actually said it wouldn't be relevant in 28 days. So a lot of you who have a product-based business, or perhaps have a commodity that relies on markets and things like that, of course you would need to price fix, and you have a natural expiry. But maybe the services industry that doesn't, you may not feel comfortable initially with an expiry. I don't see the problem with it. If my proposal is relevant now, how is it going to be relevant in 6 months' time? The world is moving at such a pace. You have absolute defendability to make sure there's an expiry date in the proposal. The other thing we did is we really educated the sales team on expectations and boundaries. So we were like, look, we expect, you know, if you do this, we need this. So it was really, really clear. There was no ambiguity of that. The other thing we looked at is automating some of the process. I actually want to talk to you about that in a bit. That's one of the hacks. I'm really excited about that. And also we just taught them to trial close. So we taught them to trial close through the whole process, which, as most of you will know, a trial close is a mini close. And we did some really good work on like authentic closing and stuff that made people not feel icky about closing. So that's what we did with that business. And it was really good. And look, it's been a massive success. Hopefully that helps on the sales cycle and reducing that. So I've got one more hack before I go into questions. If you do have any questions, please do pop them in the chat, and then Rachel can work out which questions she wants me to ask first. But we do have two separate question time. So hack 2 is your guarantee and supercharging your guarantee. So this is quite polarizing, because the world has been using guarantees for some time. They started in the product industry. So, you know, if you bought something, 100% guaranteed satisfaction, that type of thing. But they have morphed. And what's really interesting about supercharging your guarantee is that you don't actually have to change anything fundamentally. So a guarantee is there to ensure that there's not a regret purchase. It's there to give that person that extra layer of confidence that your product or service is going to do what it says it's going to do. Look, that in itself is a lot easier when you've got a physical product, right? So for instance, if you want to buy a backpack and it's got a lifetime guarantee, so an organization, lifetime guarantee, sorry, an organization says, hey, you need, you want a backpack, and they will say, look, this backpack is so amazing. If it breaks in 20 years, we will replace it. It's a lifetime guarantee. That's strong. And what it does is, with the guarantee stuff, is it feeds into fear. It feeds into that doubt. So that's where it's got to feed into. So the backpack is $190, quite expensive for a backpack perhaps. And so really want that, you know, that assurance it's going to last forever. What is interesting is the stats of people that do use that guarantee for those products. Likewise, if you have 120% guarantee on a product, and actually the percentages of people using it at the moment, the stats suggest that only less than 10%, it's about 8% of people will actually utilize that guarantee in the product world. So if you have a physical product. With the services world, what's really interesting is we bring out our guarantees in service level agreements. I don't know if you feel the same. So what we do is we will say, you know, 24 hours turnaround on customer service, you will get excellent this, excellent that. Well, actually they're SLAs, they're not guarantees. And I think we've got to be very, very careful here that a guarantee is supercharged. It's one thing and one thing only, and it doesn't have to be the same for every customer. So let me give you an example. So if you have a portfolio of customers and you really want to bring out those SLAs, but you really know you want to bring out the guarantee, really, you would actually pick one of those perhaps SLAs to really, really promote to the customer, because the customer, it depends on what the customer actually really needs. So with the services-based industry, you can actually do some really cool stuff, because you can look at what the fear of the customer is. So the fear of the customer may be that they want to talk to the same person. That's all they want. And that could be their guarantee. In an industry that I know quite well, which is recruitment, it's best practice in the industry to offer 6 months as a guarantee for the person to stay in the role. So you place the role, you charge them a certain amount of money, and then what you would do is you say, look, if they leave in 6 months, we give you the money back. That's very common. And I know other industries do quite similar things. So what I'm saying here is you don't offer 6 months, you offer 12 months. There is obviously questions about how commercially viable that is to some businesses, but do remember that if you are going through a process where it's a product-based process, on average, only 8% of individuals will actually take you up on that offer. In the services industries, it actually, I've got no stats, because it all depends on what you're offering in terms of the satisfaction. The good thing is, though, is that it will be very low. So if it's worded as, 100% customer satisfaction, that type of thing, I mean, it's very standard. I hope you don't use that one, because that's rubbish. I think it's got to be far more, if you are not delighted, or, if we do like a debrief or a post kind of debrief on the process, if you are not going to score us 10 out of 10, then we need to have a sort of commercial conversation type thing. So that's the supercharging of the guarantees. It is that one is tricky, and it's worth getting right, but please don't mistake it for the SLAs. And it is a standalone guarantee. So we're just going to run into questions now. Also, I'm going to take a breath and have a drink. All right, so questions. Okay, thanks, Rachel. So what if you get a client who does not commit or allow you to schedule? Oh, hold on, you moved. Allow you to schedule the follow-up meeting in their diary. Yeah, great question. Has anyone? It'd be really interested to know if anyone, if everyone can put their hand up if they feel uncomfortable at scheduling the next meeting at that stage. Does anyone feel uncomfortable with that? Actually asking a question and saying, hey, I want to schedule the next meeting. No, all feel comfortable. Amazing, good stuff. All right, so clients they definitely can push back on you. The first thing I would do is ask why, because if they're not allowing you to schedule the meeting, it may not actually be to do with they don't want to work with you. It may actually to do with they've got a holiday coming up, or they've got something else. So the first thing I would do is ask why. Why can't we schedule the meeting? What are you thinking? What often will come out then is they will tell you exactly what they're thinking, really kind of rawly. And at that point, what's really good about that process is that if you get warts and all there, if they say no, you can't schedule the next meeting, the good thing is that you will work out if they're a serious client or not. Because often they will basically, other than personal commitments, they will have to explain to you why they're not committed to put the next date in the diary. And of course, it may be certain things, but my question would be is how much of a buy-in sign is that? They may push back and say, can't do it. I don't want to do it face-to-face, whatever. Just say, no, Zoom link, do 15 minutes. When can you do it? Most people will agree to it. I have to say, I haven't had much pushback. And the people that do push back are the ones that often aren't the serious clients, which if you find them early, bloody awesome. Like if you get them early, isn't that just the best use of time when you're not wasting any more time? Hope that helped. Rach, Yeah, okay, thank you. Does anyone want to ask a question live? Got lots of people here. Anyone? Couple of cameras off. No? All right, so I've got one on the chat here. What's a trial close? So a trial close is a small close where you would say, we've spoken about expectations today, and I will do X, Y, and Z, and deliver my product, for you, and I will deliver this mandate or this piece of work. And if I do that for this price, with this kind of arrangement within the timing that you've set, will you sign the agreement? I mean, that's quite a direct close, but it's like a small snippet close, so that right at the end of the process. So if you've got a sales cycle of, say, 12, 18 weeks, that you don't then start closing right at the end. Awesome. Any other questions? No? Okay, cool. All right, I might just move on to hack number 3. So hack 3 is expectations and boundaries. So forgive my reference here, but I think you'll get it. So I do compare my clients sometimes to children. And the reason, let me explain, don't judge me just yet, or fur babies, of course. So the thing with clients is that they tell you what they want, and you know what they need, right? They tell you one thing and they do another. I don't know about you, but my children do that to me. And they don't listen the first time. So that is why I compare them to children. And I really mean that in the nicest possible way. So what do I do? So the first thing I do is I really listen. I really listen to understand. So a little bit like, and I can only use the same example, is when, my kids are in kindy, so they're quite young, but they come home and they've had like a really horrible day, or someone's been mean to them. And all you want to do is go in solution mode. All you want to do is sort of march down there and, sort out things. But of course you don't. You sit there and you listen intently, and you listen to understand. So that's what I do to clients. I don't jump to solution mode, because you're just like any other salesperson. If you do, just listen to understand. The other thing I do is I intuitively know what they need. And when they tell me what they want, I absolutely am respectful, but I kind of know what they need from the off. And like my children, I hope, my clients know that I'm there for them and I've got their back, but that they can't take the piss out of me. I think I'm so boundaried, and I really am clear on what I expect from them as a true partnership, and that has really served me very well. So let's just play that out, and I've promised you the how. So what I do is I sit there and I repeat. I call it the repeat and layer technique. So the repeat and layer technique is a sales technique where you actively listen. We all know what actively listen means. So I intently listen and I repeat back, not in an annoying way. Have you ever had that really annoying person that repeats back everything you say? Yeah, don't do that. So the active listening is that you repeat back, but then you layer. So you don't look like you know better, or you're arrogant and you tell them that you know what they need, and the rest of it. I don't suppose you guys would ever do that. But so you would say, okay, yep. So I think I've heard. So I want to go through this. So you want a flan, and you want cream, and you're thinking that you want some strawberries, and you want this, you want some nuts on top. Have I got, am I on the right track? And they go, yeah. And you go, right, okay. I'd really like to talk to you about some raspberries. And they go, huh? Like, you know what? I love this. I love the flan. I love the strawberries. I love this. Hey, raspberries, how cool is that? How cool is raspberries? And I know I'm used a silly example, but I hope it kind of gets it across. The thing is that they need the raspberries. The strawberries taste like crap. Raspberries are in season, strawberries aren't. They need that. But if you tell them, if you go in there and go, hey, the raspberries, not the strawberries, straight away, they're going to feel quite pushed into things. So my listen or repeat and layer, or listen and layer, really. The other thing that I do set in expectations is I put things in writing, even if it's a conversation that doesn't require a proposal. I noticed someone in the chat said that they don't send proposals anymore. Oh my goodness. The minute I stopped sending proposals, my business just went mental, because just they are a massive waste of time for some industries, of course. Yeah, so with set clear expectations, and I often put it in a project plan. So I make sure it's actually in writing, because I can actually reference it then as well. I think referencing something you've agreed with a client is really important. You know, we've agreed this, and it's not about the price. Often referencing expectations is really good, so that after the sales process, I mean, on average, everyone was kind of like 8 to 12 weeks. But if at 12 weeks, I can't remember what I did at the weekend, and it's Monday morning, right? So how are you going to remember 12 weeks ago? So it's really good to set those expectations in a project plan. The other thing with these kind of boundaries and sales and things is not pushing them into a direction. A little bit like, you know what they need, but you have to hear what they want. If you push them into a direction without a considered response, or really without their permission, the sale will possibly fall over, because they will get what you're trying to do. People are very in tune to being sold to. And the final thing is, like I said just a minute ago, is following up, reminding them of the agreement. So there's nothing wrong at 12 weeks, 14 weeks, when a client or a customer is kind of messing you around, to reference the project plan, reference the original agreement. And it's often not the agreement that's signed in writing, like legally. It's often the email agreement that perhaps you've put with the overriding agreement. You've agreed to do this by this stage, and it's not to beat them up. I mean, of course we don't want to beat anyone up, but it's just to hold them to account. You're a partner to them, right? So regardless of who your clients are, you are their partner, you are their service provider. In a lot of cases here, I'm sure you're not there to be pushed around, or you know, if they're a large corporation. I know some of you may deal with large corporations, and they can be very tricky, and yes, they do have a lot of bureaucracy, but it shouldn't really make that much difference in terms of an expectation call. It might just be an expectation will be, this deal will take 12 months. Fine, no problem, but knowing that up front. All right, so hack 4, ditch the low value clients. So this is when the people that are multitasking and have got their cameras off, which is totally fine. I would just love you to just to jump in the chat, and please be opinionated here. So a low value client to me may be a different low value client to you. So I'm just going to talk to you about what I'm going to talk about with this. So I'm absolutely sure that you know, or I'm absolutely sure that you've heard of the 80-20 rule, in terms of 80% of your revenue will come from 20% of your clients. And of course, your business might be slightly different, but I would say majority of businesses, that is the case. So I don't know if you've ever seen the mouse and the mouse analogy and the mouse's tail. I'm sure you have. It's actually really old. I got taught this bloody 10 years ago, I think 15 years ago. All right, so let's just say we're looking at this analogy, and we're saying, okay, so 80% of our revenue is in the mouse's bum part. I know it doesn't look like a mouse, but you get the impression. So this is the mouse, right? And then you've got a really, 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 really long mouse's tail. And General Electric do something similar, and they actually cut 10%, or they used to, I'm not sure if they do now. They cut 10% of their staff every year, and they hire up. So they basically will just keep cutting 10% of their staff to keep hiring and lifting the bar. It's a kind of a little bit like that. So where you've got tiny little low value, well, I say low value, low revenue clients, and they don't necessarily need to be low value, but they're low revenue clients, they're juicing up 80% of your time, right? I don't know about you, but I came in this morning with 300 emails in my inbox. If I reacted to every single email, I would pick my head up at 4 o'clock and I would have done nothing. I would have done nothing strategic. I would have done nothing meaningful, just responding. So ditching low value clients is where it gets really fun. So what we do is we cut off the mouse's tail. So I don't believe that all of us are in a position to ditch clients. So I am in two of my businesses because we've been around a long time. One of the businesses is 10 years old and we're really well established. And when I say ditch, I'm sounding quite disrespectful. It's more just, you know, clients have a life cycle too, right? So they come into our lives and then they go again, and that's okay. And we're used as we're used as vendors for a period of time, and then they move on, and that's okay. So if we look at cutting the mouse's tail off right at that end part, we're actually freeing up a lot of time. So how do we do that is the next thing to really go into. But before we do, I really, really want to understand what you think a low value client is, like to you. And those of you who are kind of doing a few things at once, if you wouldn't mind just popping in the chat, you don't have to turn your cameras on, I understand. But if you can just pop in the chat what you think a low value client is. You know, it could be low revenue, it could be terrible payment terms, take too long to onboard. Yeah, great, thanks, Chris. Yeah, great. Time suckers. I love those time suckers. The low value clients are individuals. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a good point. Asking for a lot of support before committing. Yeah, great. Okay. All right. Yeah, great. Thanks, Guy. I really appreciate contribution there, because for me, I just, everyone's so different. Look, I think for those of you who are sitting there going, well, I can't really ditch people that pay me money for coaching sessions type thing. I'm not saying that you do, just bear with me, because I know that this isn't as sort of linear, if you like. So I have a thing in my business is actually more so in this one, in terms of keep, delegate, or automate. So I appreciate some of you may not have the opportunity to delegate to other people, but just bear with me, right? So if you can think right now, or do a 20-minute exercise after this, think of 10 people or 10 businesses that you can put into this exercise who are giving you a bit of grief, and that you think they're low value clients or they're low value customers. Just humor me, 10 of them. You have the ability to keep 2 of them. Who do you keep and why? So you will keep the ones that have the propensity to go from a low value client to a high value client, right? And that's quite subjective as well. Then I want you to delegate 6 of them. And I'll talk to you about delegation, because not all of us have support staff. So of course you can't delegate if there's no one else to delegate to. Delegate 6 of them, and then you automate the final 2. And this is just an exercise. This is just humor me. This is just an exercise. You don't actually have to end up doing it. By cutting the mouse's sort of tail off, if you like, what you're actually doing is you're freeing up the time to keep feeding the top of the funnel with new clients, to basically keep generating high value clients. So with the keep will be often people that you know, are low value at the moment, but you just know that they are not going to stay that way. You've done a piece of work for them, but you just know that they're, you know, super well connected, or that you know you're going to do repeat work for them. The delegate ones, so this is absolutely you know, a really great process to go through. If you can delegate that to someone that hasn't got an hourly rate as high as yours, then that is absolutely when you do that. So delegating those clients where they're sucking up your time, and they have said to you they want to deal with you. People say to me, I just want to deal with you, I don't want to deal with your team. Well, the business isn't structured like that. And I'm not rude about it, but at the end of the day, they're not in the ideal client persona that I can spend that time with them anymore. So I delegate that to often someone else. If you haven't got the person to delegate that to, or the people to delegate that to, you deprioritize that client. And I know you're not going to like that, and it's going to feel icky, and you just probably sit there and go, I can't because I have SLAs or whatever. If you allow your inbox to dictate your day, your revenue will always stay the same. If you do this exercise with 10 individuals or 10 companies, and you get really, really clear on who those 6 people that you want to, and we don't say deprioritize, but they're not prioritized as much as the keep ones. The final 2, automate, is really interesting, actually. So automation is all about, as you know, process and not touching it, and time efficiency and stuff like that. It doesn't need to be war and peace. You don't need to fully automate in a machine learning situation or any kind of AI. So I had a very early walk with a friend this morning who's in an industry that I don't know very well. And I said to her, I was like, what's the pain point of your sales team? And she was like, capacity. We just don't have any capacity. Some people have 6,000 clients and they just don't have any time. And I was like, wow, 6,000 clients is a lot. And I said, well, what do you do? Tell me about the problem, because I'm kind of desperately trying to solve the problem, because I really didn't want today you guys talk to me about the problem and then me not being able to solve it. And she said, oh, we're just, you know, that clients are time suckers and etc., etc. And I said, well, automate the time suckers, work out who they are and automate it. And really quickly she jumped in and she was like, well, there's no time for automation because we don't have IT capacity. We don't have any IT budget. IT team is completely stretched. We can't automate. So you don't need an IT team to automate. Automate is all about priorities, and it's all about, you know, as simple as a mail merge. So you run a campaign and you automate sections of your client base with simple mail merges. You could even just do it in your diary. So yes, of course, it's not fully automated, but you are touching those clients in a personalized manner, in a campaign, for instance, in a way that you're comfortable with, but it's not juicing up that time, and you're not being reactive, you're being proactive. So, oh my goodness, I've got a really dry mouth. All right, so I hope that was a good kind of piece, that hack, and we're gonna go on to one final hack before Q&A. But just before we do, I just want to get you guys to do the survey. I mentioned this at the top. Really would like you to do the survey. It's 3 questions. It'll take 2 seconds. And if you do want the downloadable, we've got like a sales playbook, which is essentially a miniature version about our sort of main offering. And the sales playbook is basically got cold prospect scripting in there. It's got cold call emails. It's got how to master a meeting. It's got, you know, lots of things. It's a miniature version, so it's a bit more palatable than the big one. The big one's quite overwhelming. But if you do want that, there's a thingamajiggy in the survey that says you can download it as well, so we can send that to you. So I might just let you do the survey, and then if you can just put done in the chat afterwards, and then I know when to go into the final hack. You're gonna like the final hack. I like it. I'll just give you a minute or so. Thanks. All right. Thank you for doing the survey. I really appreciate that. All right. So the final hack is options win. I learned this too late in my sales career, and it really shits me sometimes, because If only I'd known it sooner. All right, so I can only explain it in this way because it's for me it really really resonates. So have you ever been shopping where you wanted to buy like a sofa, or maybe you didn't go to buy a sofa, but you found a sofa and you sit in the sofa and it feels good. You feel like a rock star in it. You can envisage it. You've got your pillows. You can think about, you know, snuggling up with your loved ones and all the rest of it, and you can really really, you know, envisage it, and you're sitting there thinking, oh, you know, it's awesome, but it's a lot of money. It's like double a normal sofa's price. The salesperson's pushing it a bit too hard, and you're just sitting there going, well, I don't really need a sofa. The dog's probably going to chew it, let's be honest. So let's be realistic about this type of thing. And then the salesperson turns around and says, hey, there's another option over here, and it's an inferior sofa. You sit in it, it looks the same, and you humor the salesperson and you sit in the sofa and it's not the same at all. Like you sit in it, you touch it, you feel it. You don't feel like $1 million in it. You don't really want to lay on it. You don't want to snuggle on it. And you go back, and the salesperson, who hopefully is smart, will turn around and talk to you about sort of the options and things like that. In retail, the odds of you buying that original sofa go up by 60%, 58% if they show you an option, because the option's inferior. So I'm not suggesting your businesses are going to be as fabulous as that in terms of that option. The option will increase. But like I said to start with, I have just found the optionality quite late on in my career, and I'm sort of almost annoyed that I have, because I reckon I could have made way more money if I had it. So when putting something together, there is no problem with putting optionality in there. If you can provide 2 to 3 options for your client, the purchasing power will increase. I can't guarantee what it will increase in your industry, but I can say what it is for the product industry. The second thing to do with this final hack of the options win is to ensure that you are not wedded to one option. Do not show your cards. Provide the options, be agnostic to the options. The third thing, and it's really important to follow this process, the third thing is to take one of the options off the table immediately. Humor me on this. I'll come back to this. So you've got 2 to 3 options. You then explain the options, but you're agnostic, but then you remember that one of them is no longer available. For whatever reason, you know, we don't have the resources or something positive, not negative. So you don't say, oh, it's not available because it didn't sell, whatever. You know, one of the good ones that I really love is where you take one off the table and you talk about how it's actually got too many clients in that portfolio, too many clients, you know, or we don't have the resources because the demand has been so big. I'll tell you why to take that option off the table in a second. And then you go through the process. So the client feels, or the customer feels, like they have a say in the buying power, and you can close them like that as well. You say, what do you want? Option 1, option 2, and it helps with the close as well, which is an unintended benefit. So by taking that option off the table, you give yourself the most amazing reason to contact that client when they've gone off radar. So we all have clients go off radar, the ones that ghost you for whatever reason. And look, being ghosted is kind of frustrating, especially if you've done everything right. You know, if you've set expectations, you've done this most amazing, you know, project plan, you know, you've done everything right, and then suddenly they go off radar. But you can't control that, right? You can't control the fact that they have other priorities, or they're away, or something's happened in their personal life. Because you've taken the option off the table, but you have explained it to them. They do know what it is broadly, and they know that it's off the table because there's too many clients in there, or you can't service the amazing need for it. You call them and you tell them the option's back on the table. So they're not going to take your call if you're just going to say the same thing. I want to follow up with this. Boring, boring, boring. And you don't want to make those calls. You know, you're bored with your own voice, you know, asking for the follow-up. But the cool thing is you phone them and go, hey, option 2, I don't know if you remember. They remember. Trust me, they remember. Because human nature is that you remember what you can't have. It's like the boyfriend that ditches you, or the girlfriend that ditches you, the one that, you know, told you weren't good enough. You know, you bloody remember them. It's like the same, not as extreme, I appreciate. You remember the options that were taken off the table. So you phone them and you say, hey, I don't know if you remember, I'm not following up on the, you know, whatever I'm following up on anymore. That's fine. You just come back to me. But by the way, the proposal's expired anyway, so I'm not going to honour that price, by the way. But then you say, hey, I don't know if you remember when we met, there was an option that I couldn't offer because we didn't have the capacity, but it's back on the table now. Let me look, give me 15 minutes. I'll send you an invite. Let's just do it online and bash it out and explain what that option is. And that's just the most fabulous way to get that client from goodness knows where they are in the world to re-engage with you. I really hope that you liked that, and I really hope that that's some benefit. Whether I see you again or not, I'm good with that. I really am just really grateful for your time. I think I've got 10 minutes. I really wanted to go into time management and some assumptive framing, which is basically closing on steroids, but there isn't time. The next Lunch and Learn is going to be in August on networking and how to be memorable. It's going to be super fun. I need to have a glass of wine before that as well. And if you want to connect with me on socials, I was never going to sell to you today or pitch to you today. It was absolutely not about that. But if you do want more information about the stuff that we offer, just follow us on socials or send me a note. So let's just have some final questions before I let you go to your day. We've got 10 minutes. If you do want to actually say your question, turn your camera on and actually say your question out loud, I'd be really grateful for that. But if not, just pop it in the chat.
I've got a question.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi. So with that last one, the opt-in that you were talking about, if you say, oh yeah, there's that one, but actually that one's not available right now, does that not create that's what they want because they now can't have it? And you've now got that off the table. And so then they're like, actually, I don't really want any of the options.
Yeah, it definitely has to be. You have to be careful how you position it. So I wouldn't make option 2. So if you've got 3 options and you take option 2 off the table, or actually it is actually better to take option 1 or 3 off the table, just so you know. The human brain often will go in the middle, so that's why you'll see a lot of psychology of selling. You have the cheapest option and then you have the most expensive, and they position the middle one's the best. So actually, if you're going to take anyone off the table, don't take the middle one off the table, take the first or the third. The key thing is positioning. So it's to turn around and say, hey, that one's, look, option A is this, this, and this. Look, we do have a capacity issue with this. I can't offer you that today. Let me talk to you about option B and C. Option B is similar to A, and then you just really ebb up the benefits of option B and C. And selling the sizzle, not the steak. So really selling the kind of the look, feel, and the benefit rather than the actual product itself. I actually haven't had problems with it because I'm telling them about option A, but I'm not rodding on about it. I'm not saying, you know, it's just the most amazing product, but actually option B is quite similar. Does that help? Hi, Claire.
So thank you. This has been really helpful. I was just talking to someone this morning about our very long sales cycle, and a lot of the time we'll be talking to a prospect where they really they do not need what we're selling just yet, but there's a very good chance that in the next 6 to 12 months they might. So what would be your advice when you're having that initial conversation, like with a cold call or with a slightly warm prospect, where you can't help them straight away and there's no point hounding them? How do you kind of get within their consideration set for when they inevitably will decide that they kind of need you a bit later on? Is it just putting them on an email list? Because that's pretty much what we're doing.
And that's more than some people do. So that's good. Just one question, just give me a bit more context in terms of why don't they need the product?
It's just inherent within the product that you only tend to need it like once every 3 or 4 years. So if they've just installed a certain thingy, they're not going to need that thingy again for at least 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, okay. And you're only selling one product, really, are you? So you're not sort of selling other surrounding products.
There are other things they could have, but again, they're things that you may need infrequently, big things infrequently.
Yeah, okay. No. Really good question. So we all understand that we need to be front of mind when they need that. People buy because they're in pain and they want you to alleviate their pain, or they buy because they're going to go after such significant gain. People don't buy in the middle, which is what you're saying. So they're not going to buy because they're not in pain and they're not after gain. They're not kind of, your product is so good that they need to put it on their to-do list. So there's a couple of things that you can do, but you want to stay front of mind, and an email, while it's good, is not really going to penetrate them. The first thing I would do is work out the top maybe 20 to 30 that you identify as being the highest value clients. And so I would tier them. So I wouldn't put everyone in the same bucket. I would actually say, okay, what are the 20 to 30 that I will make sure I will be in touch with over the next year, because I know they're going to need it soon, but not yet. Never leave it in their hands. You'll never see me sign off an email. I leave it to you. And if I do, it means because I don't want to talk to you. It literally, I'd never leave anything in someone else's hands. So I would definitely put everyone on the list, on the mailing list. I then would segment them clients to make sure that you segment the ones that are and what I just spoke about, the keep, delegate and automate. I would do the same process. I would basically say, I know that this client is actually going to want this product, big ticket product, but it's probably going to be one of those clients that buy lots of other things. They're going to be in my 20 to 30. And then I would structure campaigns around them. So I would pop them on a podcast. I'd do webinars just for their business. I would make sure that they would come to initiatives we would do. I would write a blog about them. I would do anything I could to stay front of mind. I'd also make sure the executives and the decision makers were well aware of my business. And so I would literally be a dog with a bone, but in a strategic way. You don't sales call people for 2 years and expect the same result. You just offer different things. So that's what I would do. So segment them, because otherwise you don't have unlimited time. That helped. Awesome. Thank you. We've got some more here. So there was one from, I don't know if Lucinda. Are you online, Lucinda? Are you happy to share your question?
Hi, yep, here I am, still here. So just a bit of a theme with this year, the way things, like at a macro level, the way things are kind of rolling out. January was sort of Omicron, then it was the floods, then it was, something else and something else. And I've noticed, certainly not, with application to everybody, but it's been quite a consistent theme with a lot of calls and communications with people that they're swamped with this huge pile of work. Then they either get sick with one of the either influenzas or the COVIDs going around, or they kind of reach a burnout point and they want to take some significant leave. Yeah. And then they come back and they're, piled up with work, and just trying to get that kind of prioritization with them. You know, I'd love any ideas or angles that you might have to break through the macro stuff going on. And it doesn't seem to be sector related. It seems like it's sort of across the board at the moment.
100%. It's a really good question. And, you know, nice people who have busy lives in sales are very conscious of their clients' stresses and diaries and not being another thing to do. And oh my goodness, absolutely. The last thing you want is, you know, someone hounding you for something that really just isn't a priority at the time. Look, there is a few things, but I have to say, Lucinda, I don't think that this is a perfect answer because I also struggle. So I know I need to get in front of certain people, and they're often large corporations, executives. And I also struggle with that. I know this is not a priority syndrome. It's almost like a thing because I know that the world has been very busy. But what I have done and what I would suggest to do is the first thing I do is make sure I don't have a key person risk. So I don't allow my clients to bottleneck me. So what I mean by that is we all know what the decision maker, who's the decision maker in your business, right? Who's the decision maker in your clients? And often there will be corporate or you know, maybe smaller clients, whatever. But you'll often find yourself bottlenecked with the one key decision maker. And because you're busy as well, you haven't often focused on other people that actually are surrounding the decisions, like key stakeholders as well. The first thing I do is I make sure I spend my time making sure they know who we are and what the service we're offering. So I don't sort of go head on, I go around the sides in terms of other people. That has been a lot more successful because hate to say it, but if that person doesn't come back to work because of long-term sick and you've been bottlenecked and you haven't allowed yourself to go, and I'm not saying you have been, but you haven't really branched out. So the first thing I do is look at who surrounds that person. And so I spend some time on them. The other thing I will do is I will make sure that I won't be me, myself, and I in my request. So I don't know if you've heard of WIFM, What's in It for Me? So for me, I just try and run my life by WIFM when it comes to business. What's in it for them? Why would they bother taking my call? Why would they bother sending me an email? So instead of, I never start emails, I know you're busy, because you've just given them a reason to say no. Everyone's busy. Like, busy is such a badge to use. It's such an annoying word. So in the email, you know, I will appreciate they've got a lot on, but I would never say, I know you're busy, get to this when you can or anything like that, because the whole email is just not worth kind of really writing. But what I will do is I will say, look, I just need to understand if this is if this is a priority still. I understand there's been some change of circumstances. I really hope you're okay or you're doing okay. And I don't know the situations, but if this is still a priority, I think we should get something in the diary. If it's not, just let me know. So it's just about valuing your own service and kind of going, you know that it might not be a priority. That would be one tactic. There's a lot of different tactics. The other one that I would employ is to take a step back from that if they're not coming back to you on different platforms. And with a respectful email is to just a little bit like the mouse's towel, is to just cut off for a bit and just take a step back and then go to filling up the funnel with other people and other companies. And the final one that comes to mind that certainly we've tried and it's been successful is we speak to that client about something completely different. We completely change tact. So before Omicron and, you know, all of the rest of it, we were talking about A, B, and C, and then for whatever reason it stalled. They may still need A, B, and C, but they have so much else going on that needs their time that they actually then want to talk about, you know, X, Y, Z. And so I basically then just approach it and say, hey, I know I've been talking about ABC, but looking at X, Y, Z, love your advice on it, love to talk to you about it, and just kind of mixing up the communication so that when you do get in their diary and you do get a conversation about X, Y, and Z, you can sign off A, B, and C as well. Hope that helped. Okay. Awesome. Well, look, we've come to time now, and I really hope that was packed full. I definitely need a drink of water. So I'm going to sign off. And hopefully I get to see you at the networking lunch and learn, and follow us on socials if you want some more free content. Okay, take care. Thanks everyone. Bye now. Bye.